Welcome back. The rand has moderated after it strengthened by more than 40 cents against the dollar overnight. Now, that surge came after the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, suggested it may not be rushing to raise interest rates as fast as investors had thought. The longer the US holds off raising interest rates, of course, the longer emerging markets like our own can benefit from investment flows by offering relatively more attractive rates. Now, oil also jumped on that news that the Fed wasn't exactly dropping its patient stance completely, but it's once again near $50 a barrel after Kuwait said that the oil cartel OPEC could not consider cutting back output as it used to. The price of oil plunged by around 50% between June last year and early this year due to concerns that there's just too much being supplied in the world. So tonight we're focusing on what this all means for us at the moment. On Monday, Shell announced that it was putting plans to become involved in fracking in the Karoo on hold. Fracking involving a pumping of a mixture of chemicals, sand and water into the ground at high pressure to free gas trapped between layers of shale rock. It is controversial, of course, with environmentalists fiercely against it. To discuss the future of fracking in the Karoo, I'm joined by a leader of Sub-Saharan Oil and Gas M&A Advisory at Deloitte, Claude Illy. Great to have you with us, Claude. So the President said in his State of the Nation address, fracking is this game changer for South Africa. But of course, the price has dropped significantly. Is that the real game changer?
I think in the long term, fracking will be a game changer. Obviously, people have to explore first. So we talk about all the resources potentially in the Karoo, but until wells are drilled, we won't know if there is actually what is there. So unfortunately, the regulations and the pressure from environmentalists is stopping the process of doing the early exploration phase to see if there is actually something there.
Well, Shell raised the issue of the oil price, but also that regulation uncertainty because of the minerals and petroleum bill. I can't remember the exact word. But that seems to be held up in Parliament at the moment. What's happening in your view?
There were some positive messages sent at the beginning of the year around the amendment bill to the MPRDA. The President Zuma had sent it back to Parliament for review, and because there were some weaknesses in it. So I think that there was a positive message. I've not heard of any development since then. But I would assume that the decision of Shell is a combination of regulatory framework, but it's mainly driven by the drop in oil price, as you said.
I was going to ask, which is the bigger thing holding them back right now? And possibly when the oil price goes up, they will suddenly start being interested again. Is that what you think will happen?
You've seen all the majors as a result, and most of the oil and gas companies as a result of the drop in oil price have completely reviewed their capital expenditure programs for the year 2015 and also 2016. There has been drastic cuts, and mainly in exploration, to focus on production and development assets where the return on investment is the closest and there's the lowest risk. So indeed, everybody looked at their portfolio from a risk-reward point of view and are prioritizing the easy assets and are putting the more difficult one or longer term on the back burner.
Is this no longer a bun fight, I would say, to grab those assets while you can, to be involved at the beginning and reap the rewards at the end? Is it dangerous for Shell to step back? Is there anybody vying to step in the Karoo?
There will be interest, but there are so many assets for sale right now in the market. The total budget for next year, so let me just step back. The exploration and production budget in oil and gas last year, everybody spent about 650 billion rand in exploration, development, producing capex. And they've cut this by about 15 to 20% this year. So there's $150 billion of assets which are looking for investments. So there is a lot of choice. And it's not anymore a buyer's market. It's not anymore a seller's market. It's a buyer's market. The buyers are spoiled for choice. So Shell made the decision to suspend its activities. Maybe somebody will see it differently. But obviously, there's been a long history behind the shale gas in Karoo.
What does this mean for South Africa overall? You are saying it will be a game changer down the line. What time frame are you looking at? Because according to Trevor Manuel, I think this was something that could create jobs, that could create huge growth, which we desperately need in South Africa.
It could be a game changer. Look at what it did to the US. You know, the new jobs, the economic impact.
Well, they're the
drop
problem
in
with the oil price.
So it's got, you know, not just the US, the whole world has been affected. For South Africa, it's not the same scale of resource potentially. To answer the first question, it's going to take a long time. I mean, it will be difficult to see first commercial shale gas production from the Karoo before 10 years from now, because there's still a lot of steps to be taken before we get to that commercial production. You need to do exploration, then you need to do pilot tests, then you need to get all the infrastructure. So it's a long process. The sooner we start, the better it is.
Talking finally about those regulations, the concern is here that government wants to stake its claim, 20%, possibly more, but there's uncertainty about that extra bit. Do you agree with me? I think all companies understand now that governments have the right to do this, to stake their claim for the good of their people. What they just want is a certain stake and to know that that's stable and fixed, and it can even be quite considerate.
Indeed. So what oil companies want is regulatory certainty, because oil and gas projects are very long-term projects. You know, you get your return over 20 years. It's a very high upfront investment. So the last thing you want is to spend billions of investment and then you start producing and the rules change and suddenly you don't make your returns anymore. So there is the regulatory certainty, which is critical. And it's as I said, it's risk reward. It's got to be a fair share between indeed the government, the society and the operator. And right now, because of the surplus of assets in the market, the risk reward is tilting towards the operators. So governments that want a too big share of the pie are going to lose in that fight.
Be careful. Well, we'll follow where that bill goes. It's currently stuck in Parliament. Thank you for your time. Claude Illy from Deloitte, an update on what the oil price means for us now. It was currently, last time I looked, about $53 a barrel. The JSE rallied meanwhile today as investors cheered on those comments about interest rates coming from the US Fed Reserve policy meeting last night. Let's take a look at your financials.